Hey, Truth Seekers, welcome back. Zach here. Yesterday on April 20th, there were two new stories having to do with police and shootings that seem to be dominating the media headlines more than the other ones also floating around. And I've been listening to this radio talk show program, Joe Madison, a lot lately because to me, he's a good litmus test for how black America is responding to the mainstream media. And yesterday he was having a field day with the two stories. One story is of a man in Baltimore, Maryland, who was arrested by the police and then injured during transport to being injured so much that he died from those injuries. We'll talk more about that, all the coding of it. The other story was a contrast story. It was of a police officer who was being charged by a man who had apparently just murdered people, and the police officer was able to get him to stop charging at him without shooting a shot, without killing him. So, Joe Madison and every other talk show that preaches to a black audience was making the exact same point. If the man were black instead of white, the officer would have shot him. And it's so obvious, this narrative, in the way it's fed. Release two police stories, show one of a black man killed in police custody, show another of a white murderer who the police officer doesn't even shoot at. And we'll watch both those videos and we'll look at the coding in both of them, because like all these like all these hoaxes that I have exposed on this video blog, they're all coded with the same numbers. For the contrast, let's begin with the Jesse Kidder video. Jesse Kidder is the police officer who didn't shoot at the murder suspect. And that name Kidder is telling enough, isn't it? Like they're laughing at us. They're kidding. Jesse, a name with 13 gematria. Kidder, a name with 33 gematria. Jesse Kidder. Let's watch this video. Let's see. Here we go.
A cop named Jesse Kidder with his body cam. A potential life and death face-off with a man who had just allegedly killed two people.
Stop! Stop right there! I don't want to shoot you, man. I don't want to shoot you.
This is the neighborhood where it all went down. Officer Kidder had heard radio traffic that a dangerous suspect was driving in the area. He waited at a nearby intersection, saw the car, and then started following him for about 11 minutes. And this is where it ended, a very quiet, affluent neighborhood in the Cincinnati suburbs. The New Richmond, Ohio police officer was warned the suspect was likely armed and apparently wanted to be killed by a cop, as you will hear.
Shoot me! Put your hands on your pocket now! No, man. I'm not going to do it. Shoot me! Shoot me!
Officer Kidder's boss says the rookie police officer was smart and composed enough to notice something.
At one point in time, he reaches in his pocket, but the officer, having keen observations, realized that the hoodie pocket that he's reaching in is not sagging with something heavy, which could indicate a weapon.
Do that! Back up!
The cop is rushed by the suspect, and the officer loses his balance, a critical moment, but he still doesn't fire. Backup police officers arrive. The suspect, Michael Wilcox, decides to give up and stays alive, largely because of
The suspect, Michael Wilcox. Notice even the suspect has a 33 name. Yes, Michael's a very common name, but how often do we need to see it in these hoaxes?
valor and fast thinking of this man, Officer Jesse Kidder.
I was trying to open a dialogue with him. I don't want to shoot you, just get on the ground. But he wasn't having it. He just kept repeating, shoot me. At one point, he said, shoot me or I'll shoot you.
Shoot me! Shoot me!
Jesse Kidder has only been a cop for about 1 year. He's a Marine, served in Iraq, earned a Purple Heart, and only had a body cam because his family had bought it for him for his safety after the police shooting in Ferguson, Missouri.
He got towards my face right as I lost balance. I'm thinking at this
Did you hear that? The only reason that he has this police cam is because his family bought it for him to keep him safe after Ferguson, Missouri. Oh boy.
point that if he goes in to attack me, that I will have to use deadly force to defend myself.
But it didn't come to that. The suspect now in custody. And the police police chief now talking about getting funding to get body cameras for all his officers after this incident with his rookie officer.
I'm proud of him. It's incredible that his family are the ones who bought
There
the
you
body
have it.
for him. Did police
More
find a weapon on
cameras.
this guy because he'd allegedly killed 2 people
Oh
already?
boy, Truth Seeker. So, Joe Madison was having a field day with that. So were all the other talkers. Saying, if that man was black, the police officer definitely would have shot him. And I don't just want to pick on, a black speaker. I noticed on CNN's Legal View, they have that new show, Ashley Banfield or something. She made the point, too, that she noticed right away that the man who had the gun pointed at him was white. She brought that up right away. Legal View has that gematria of 96 like Freemason. So that was the story of Jesse Kidder. Hoaxalicious, totally coded. The other story is of Freddie Gray. And if you haven't seen the posts I've done already, I've talked about the number 42 and its significance to black Americans. As we all know, Jackie Robinson wore the number 42, the first black Major League Baseball player. Well, Truth Seeker, if my research is correct, and I truly think it is, I put a lot of evidence into the video post I did on it. But everything from... it's just everything in black history is coded with these numbers. It's so sad. But what this 42 being coded on top of all these police killings of black men has to do with, Truth Seeker, sadly, is the word nigger. And notice that Freddie in Pythagorean gematria sums to 42. Gray sums to the reflection 24. Freddie Gray sums to 66 together, a number very closely associated with 33 and often found in these hoaxes as well. With regards to 42, Sean Bell, a black teen, was shot 42 times by police officers in 2007. In the O.J. Simpson trial, Mark Furman said nigger 42 times. In the Michael Brown shooting, Ferguson equals 42, Missouri equals 42, the initials MB equal 4 and 2. So much of this. Recently, a man was tasered for 42 seconds, black man by a white police officer. And even more than that, they just continue to do this over and over, like a broken record. This Freddie Gray shooting happened in Baltimore. What's interesting about Baltimore is its coordinates, 39 and 76. The word police in Pythagorean gematria breaks down like this, 7639. Of course, the word police has the gematria of 33. And right now in Baltimore, they're having protests over this. And they look a lot more successful, if you will, than the protests that happened in Ferguson. The people are actually supporting. Because black Americans do have good reason to be fed up with the system. It's long overdue. What's sad to think is that they're being provoked and their behavior is being controlled by people who do not have their best interests at heart. So let's watch the news coverage of the Freddie Gray incident and contrast it with the Jesse Kidder.
Police released street camera video recorded at the scene where Freddie Gray was first taken into custody, but it only added to the mystery of how he ended up dead. The camera pans but shows nothing that looks like excessive force by police, at least up to the point that he was placed inside a police transport van.
When Mr. Gray was placed inside that van, he was able to talk. He was upset. And when Mr. Gray was taken out of that van, he could not talk and he could not breathe.
Leading Baltimore's mayor to conclude that Gray's injuries occurred not on the street, but during his transport.
It's clear that what happened inside the van.
Police say Freddie Gray was stopped on suspicion of criminal activity, possibly drug-related. But that doesn't explain all that happened here. Cell phone video and audio on the street at the time of Gray's arrest paint a disturbing picture. He's on the ground. He's screaming in apparent pain. He's being taken into custody, legs limp. A woman is describing an apparent problem with his legs.
His leg broken, y'all dragging him like that.
taken to a hospital where he went into a coma and then he dies a week later. Question number one is how long it took to get this man medical attention. The city's mayor pledged a full investigation.
According to the timeline as we know, it took around 30 minutes.
Question number two, what precisely caused Gray's death? His family's attorney has described severe trauma, and he's raising the issue of excessive force.
He was in good health when the police first contacted him, and he died of an 80% severed spinal cord and 3 broken vertebrae in his neck.
Court documents filed in the case say Gray was arrested without incident after an officer noticed a knife clipped to his...
Okay, so look, this happened at 8:39 and on April 12th. True Seeker, I want to show you how this connects with Michael Brown further. The numerology of the date April 12th, 2015 is 4 plus 12 plus 15 equals 31. The foundational degree of Scottish Rite Freemasonry, 31. The date Michael Brown was shot and killed was August 9th, 2014. 8 plus 9 plus 14 also sums to 31, the foundational degree of Scottish Rite Freemasonry. And from foundation you build. So on these incidents, they continue to build. And so far, out of all these shootings and provoking stories, the greatest response from the community has been in Ferguson, even though it looked like a complete hoax. Again, in Baltimore, it looks like there is a real community response. So we'll see where it goes from here. This story could take a much bigger twist. Remember how in Ferguson, in close proximity to that story, they had a bunch of other small shootings of black teens in St. Louis and even in Ferguson again. We will see if the same type of thing happens in Baltimore. Let's continue.
He was charged with having a switchblade. The family's attorney says the knife was of legally permissible size. Gray has a long criminal record, including more than 20 arrests.
No justice, no peace.
The case has sparked a public outcry here, including demonstrations. Over the last week, Baltimore's police commissioner has been measured in his comments about the case, citing the active investigation. He did speak at an unrelated event today at Johns Hopkins University, where he talked about the community's lack of trust in the police.
And that is the conversation. In this incident with Freddie Gray, it was police officer Garrett Miller who was the initial arresting officer. Miller is a name with 33 gematria. M becomes 4, I becomes 9, L becomes 3, L becomes 3, E becomes 5, R becomes 9. Added up, Miller is 33. So in both of these stories, we have Kidder 33 and Miller 33. So much coding, Truth Seeker. I also want to point out that today they gave the names of other officers involved, the ones who were supposedly in the vehicle where he was injured. It said that 3 of his vertebrae were fractured, which has led to his death. He died supposedly this past Sunday, April 19th, a week later. In the protest that we just saw, they were chanting "No justice, no peace." This is a phrase with gematria of 67 and 76. Again, Baltimore's on the 76th meridian. The officers involved were supposedly Brian Rice, age 41. Baltimore equals 41. Caesar Goodson. Interesting name. Goodson has the gematria of 44 like officer. Put it together, it's 55 or 64. Other name is Alicia White, 30 years old. Also named gematria of 55. William Porter, 25. Named gematria of 72. And Garrett Miller, the arresting officer, age 26. Last name of 33. Named gematria of 68. And also Edward Nero, named gematria of 53. Baltimore police forms the gematria of 74. Again, the arrest happened at 8:39. 8 plus 39 is 47. The flip of 74. Numbers we see coded often. And the captain giving out the names is Captain Eric Kalzik. Name gematria of 76. Just like the meridian Baltimore's on. So a lot of coding here, Truth Seeker. Again, they put that 42 stamp on this story like they continue to do with these shooting hoaxes. Again, the 33s are coded in there as well. But the more we do this research, the more clearly we see what they continue to repeat over and over. And now we're better understanding why they did it. I also wanted to point out the numerology of the date Michael Brown died. If you do the single digit method, sums to 24, that reflection of 42, like Ferguson in Missouri. Just like Freddie in Gray, 4224. All right, Truth Seeker, that's pretty much it for this post. Until next time.